close your eyes, just for a moment. Let the day stop. Not because it wasn't hard. It probably was. Not because what happened today didn't matter. It did. But right now, in this room, in this quiet, none of it is being asked of you anymore. The night has one request. Rest. There is a story I want to share with you tonight. A story about a young man who was thrown into a pit by the people who should have protected him, who worked faithfully for years in a country he never chose, who did the right thing and was punished for it, who was promised he would be remembered and was forgotten for 2 more years. And through every single one of those chapters, the pit, the slavery, the prison, the silence, one thing never changed. The Lord was with him. His name was Joseph. And if you have ever felt that the waiting is too long, that the injustice is too real, that no one is keeping track of the faithful days you have spent in the dark, this story is for you. Not as a lecture, not as a list of lessons, as company from someone who was in the dark before you and found that the dark was not as empty as it felt. So settle in. Let your body be heavy. Let your breath find its own pace. And listen. The story begins not in prison, but long before it, with a coat, with brothers, with a dream that cost more than anyone expected. Joseph was his father's favorite. This is where the trouble began, and where it is worth starting, because the story of Joseph is, at its root, a story about what happens when favoritism fractures a family, when love is given unevenly, and the ones who receive less of it begin to carry a wound that eventually becomes something darker. Jacob loved Joseph more than any of his other sons. He gave him a coat, the famous coat of many colors, or perhaps a coat with long sleeves. The scholars debate the translation. What is clear is that the coat was a sign, visible, deliberate. A father's particular love made it into something you could see and touch, and if you were one of the other brothers, resent every single day, the brothers saw it, and they hated him, not quietly, deeply, the kind of hate that has been fed by years of comparison, of feeling overlooked, of watching someone else receive what you wanted and were not given, the kind of hate that waits for an opportunity. And then Joseph made it worse. He had dreams. not just any dreams, vivid, particular, symbolic dreams that he made the mistake of sharing with his family. Dreams in which sheaves of grain bowed down to his sheaf. Dreams in which the sun and moon and 11 stars bowed down to him. He told his brothers. He told his father. His father rebuked him, but kept the matter in mind. His brothers hated him even more. Dreams in the ancient world were not merely interesting. They were understood as messages from God, from the universe, from something larger than the ordinary day. To dream that your brothers would bow to you was not a casual thing. It was a claim, a positioning, a statement, however unintentional, about where you stood in the order of things. Joseph was 17 years old. He didn't know what his dreams meant. He didn't know what they would cost him. He only knew what he had seen in the night. And with the unguarded honesty of someone who hasn't yet learned what to keep to himself, he shared it, and the cost began accumulating. This too is worth sitting with tonight. Sometimes the things that are most true about us, the gifts, the callings, the things God has placed in us, are precisely the things that attract the most resistance. The dream that is real is also the dream that threatens. Something in the people around you, not because they are evil, because they are human, because they are carrying their own wounds, because the favoritism that wounded them is real, even if your dream is also real. Both things are true, and both things are painful. If you have ever been in a Joseph position, if the things that are most genuinely yourself have attracted hostility rather than celebration, this story is for you. The dream was real, and the cost was real, and God was present through all of it. Even the coat, even the brothers, even what was coming. Rest in that. The story is just beginning. The day it all changed began ordinarily. Joseph's brothers had taken the flocks to graze near Shechem. Jacob sent Joseph to check on them, to see if they were well, to bring back a report. Joseph went. He walked the miles to Shechem and didn't find them there. They had moved on. A man found him wandering in the fields and told him, "I heard them say they were going to Dothan." So Joseph went further, still walking in the direction of his brothers, still following the instructions his father had given him, still doing what he had been asked to do. And when his brothers saw him coming, still far off, still just a figure on the horizon, they conspired against him. "Here comes the dreamer," they said. "Come now, let us kill him." But Reuben, the oldest, intervened. "Don't take his life. Throw him in this pit. He intended to come back and rescue him. Later, when the others had calmed, he meant to come back. He didn't." The brothers sat down to eat, and a caravan of Ishmaelite traders appeared, going to Egypt. And Judah said, "What profit is it if we kill our brother? Let us sell him 20 pieces of silver." The traders took Joseph and continued on their way toward Egypt, and the brothers took his coat, the coat of many colors, the sign of his father's particular love, and dipped it in goat's blood, and brought it to Jacob. "We found this. Is it your son's robe?" And Jacob recognized it, and tore his garments, and mourned. Joseph was gone, taken, sold by his own brothers into a country he had never seen, away from his father, away from everything he had known. 17 years old, and everything changed on an ordinary day, when he was simply doing what he had been asked to do. If there is a moment in your own story that looked like this, a day that began normally and ended with everything rearranged, you know something of what Joseph carried on that road to Egypt, the disorientation of it, the inability to understand how this happened, the particular pain of betrayal, not by strangers, but by the people who should have been safe. And somewhere underneath all of it, a question: where is God in this? It is a question Joseph must have carried for years. And the answer, when it came, was not what he expected. It never is. Rest now. Let the story settle. The road to Egypt is long, and we are walking it together tonight, one step at a time. Joseph arrived in Egypt as a slave. He was bought by Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officers, the captain of the guard, a man of rank and authority in the most powerful nation in the ancient world. And here, in the very first chapter of his Egyptian life, the text says something remarkable. The Lord was with Joseph. Things did not immediately improve. What was lost was not returned. The brothers were not punished. The Lord was with Joseph. in the slave's position, in Potiphar's house, in the country he had not chosen, and had been brought against his will. The Lord was with him, and Joseph prospered, not in the way you might hope, not free, not home, not reunited with his father, but in the way that faithfulness prospers. When it is brought to whatever situation it finds itself in, Joseph worked. He paid attention. He did what was in front of him with the full weight of his capability, and Potiphar noticed. Potiphar made him overseer of his house, put everything he had into Joseph's charge, and the text says, "The Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake." The blessing extended outward, not just to Joseph, to Potiphar, to everyone in the household. The presence of the Lord with Joseph created an overflow, a blessing that moved beyond its source and touched everything around it. This is how God works through faithful people, not always in the dramatic, obvious ways, in the daily faithfulness, in the showing up, in the doing what is in front of you with all you have, in the way that blessing, when it is genuine, doesn't stay contained to one person, but spills over into the lives of everyone nearby. Joseph was a slave, and he was also a blessing. Both things were true. The injustice was real, and the blessing was real, and neither one canceled the other. Whatever situation you are in tonight, however unfair, however difficult, there is a question worth sitting with. Not, why is this happening? But, how can I be faithful here? Not, when does this end? But, who can I bless from inside this? These are not easy questions. They require the kind of settledness that only comes from knowing that God is present, even in Potiphar's house, even in the place you didn't choose, even in a position you didn't deserve. He was with Joseph. He is with you in this room, on this night, in this breath. The Lord was with Joseph, and the Lord is with you. Then came Potiphar's wife. The text is brief about it, almost clinical in its restraint. She noticed Joseph. She wanted him. Day after day, she pressed him, and Joseph refused. How could I do this great wickedness and sin against God? He refused. And one day, when no one else was in the house, she grabbed his garment. He fled, leaving the garment in her hand, and she used the garment as evidence against him. He tried to violate me. She told the servants. He tried to violate me. She told Potiphar, and Potiphar was furious, and Joseph was thrown into prison, not because he did wrong, because he did right. He had refused what was offered. He had maintained his integrity in a situation where no one would have known, where the temptation was real and the consequences of refusal were not obvious at the time. He did the right thing, and it cost him everything he had built. The position in Potiphar's house, the trust, the relative stability of a terrible situation that had nonetheless become manageable, gone, because he chose right. This is one of the most difficult aspects of Joseph's story, and one of the most honest things about it. Doing the right thing does not always protect you from consequences. Sometimes the most faithful choice lands you in prison, not because God has abandoned you, not because your faithfulness was wasted, but because the world is broken, and broken people do broken things, and the faithful person sometimes bears the cost of someone else's choices. Joseph bore it. He went to prison for something he didn't do, and the Lord was with Joseph in the prison. There it is again. The prison was comfortable. The injustice was immediately reversed. The guilty were punished, and the innocent were vindicated right away. The Lord was with Joseph in the prison, in the unjust place, in a situation he didn't deserve. The Lord was with him. If you are in something you don't deserve tonight, if there is an injustice in your situation that has not been corrected, a price being paid for something that wasn't your fault, hear this: the Lord is with you in it, not distant, not looking away, not waiting for the situation to improve. With you, in it, right now. The same presence that was with Joseph in the prison. The prison. Let's go there. Not to stay in the difficulty, but to understand what Joseph was in, the specific, particular reality of his situation, because the miracle of what God did in it is only visible against the backdrop of how dark it actually was. An Egyptian prison in the ancient world was not a temporary holding place with a clear release date. It was a place where people disappeared, where the guilty and the accused and the inconvenient were deposited and often forgotten, where the powerful put the people they were done with, where days blurred into weeks and weeks into months, and the outside world continued without any particular awareness of who was inside. Joseph had been sold by his brothers, had worked faithfully for Potiphar, had refused Potiphar's wife, and now prison, with no advocate. No one on the outside knew where he was, or what had happened to him, or whether he was alive. His father believed he was dead. The brothers who sold him had moved on. Potiphar had deposited him here and returned to his life. Potiphar's wife had moved on. No one was coming. That is the specific darkness of Joseph's situation. Not just prison, forgotten prison. And this, the forgetting, is one of the things the human heart finds hardest to bear. Not just suffering, unwitnessed suffering, suffering in the dark, where no one is keeping track. Have you ever been in a season like that? Not just a hard season that no one else fully knew about, where the difficulty was real, but the audience was absent, where you were carrying something in the dark without anyone to witness it, without anyone keeping track. Joseph was there for years, and the Lord was keeping track. That is the quiet, remarkable, easy to mistruth of the whole story. The human witnesses were absent. The divine witness was not. Every day in the prison was seen. Every faithfulness in the dark was recorded, not wasted, not unnoticed, seen by the one whose witnessing is the only witnessing that ultimately matters. Tonight, whatever you are carrying in the dark, whatever is unwitnessed in your situation, it is seen by the one who was with Joseph in the prison, who is with you in this room, who never stopped keeping track. Not one day was missed. Not one faithful day in the dark went unnoticed. Yours haven't either. Sleep in that. You are seen. You are not forgotten. The witnessing is real. the keeper of the prison. After a time, the text doesn't say how long, the keeper of the prison put Joseph in charge of the other prisoners. Again, the same pattern as Potiphar's house. Joseph brought to a dark place. Joseph faithful in the dark place. And the authority of that place, eventually recognizing something in him that warranted trust. The keeper of the prison paid no attention to anything that was in Joseph's charge, because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made it succeed. Whatever he did, the Lord made it succeed. Not whatever he did perfectly, not whatever he did with full energy and complete heart. Whatever he did, the faithfulness, even the imperfect, prison, context, not where I want to be. Faithfulness was met by God's success. There is something deeply comforting about this. We tend to imagine that God's blessing requires a certain quality of faithfulness. The full, joyful, wholehearted kind. The kind that doesn't struggle. The kind that isn't costing you something. But Joseph was in prison. His faithfulness in prison was the faithfulness of someone who had been sold by his brothers, wrongly accused by his employer's wife, and deposited in a place where people were forgotten. It was not easy faithfulness. It was not joyful faithfulness. It was the faithfulness that keeps doing what is in front of it, because that is what faithfulness does. Not because it feels good, not because the circumstances warrant it, but because integrity doesn't take days off based on how you feel about your situation, and the Lord made it succeed. That faithfulness, the difficult kind, yours tonight. Whatever faithful thing you have been doing in your own difficult place, the showing up that nobody applauds, the integrity that no one is watching, the daily choosing to be who you are, even when the situation is not what you deserve. The Lord makes it succeed, not immediately, not always visibly, but the success is real, and it is coming. Rest now. The faithfulness is not wasted. It never is. 2 men came into the prison, Pharaoh's cupbearer and his baker. Both of them had offended Pharaoh. Both of them had been deposited in the prison where Joseph was, and the captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph. One morning, Joseph came to them and found them troubled. "Why are your faces downcast today?" It's a small question, but it reveals something about Joseph that deserves attention. He was in prison. He had been sold by his brothers, wrongly accused, forgotten. He had every reason to be absorbed in his own situation, every reason to be too preoccupied with his own pain, to notice the emotional state of two men who happened to be nearby. And yet, he noticed, "Why are your faces downcast?" He saw them in the middle of his own darkness. He looked up and saw someone else's darkness and asked about it. This is not a small thing. This is, in fact, one of the most remarkable qualities a person can develop: the capacity to remain attentive to others, even in the middle of your own suffering. The ability to look beyond your own suffering and see someone else who is hurting. Joseph had this, and it was in this moment of looking up, of asking about their downcast faces, that the thread of his deliverance began. They had dreams they couldn't interpret. Joseph interpreted them. The cupbearer's dream meant he would be restored to his position in 3 days. The baker's dream meant he would be executed in 3 days. And Joseph asked the cupbearer one thing: "Remember me when it is well with you. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this place. Just remember me. For I was indeed stolen out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also I have done nothing, that they should put me into the dungeon. I have done nothing." The quiet dignity of that. Not rage, not a long recitation of grievances, not bitterness, just the simple, honest statement of a man who knew his own innocence and asked, quietly, simply, to be remembered. Remember me. 3 days later, the cupbearer was restored, and the baker was executed, exactly as the dreams had said. And the cupbearer, now back in Pharaoh's household, back in his position, back in his ordinary life, did not remember Joseph. He forgot him. 2 more years passed. 2 more years in the prison. After the cupbearer forgot. 2 years of waiting. After the thread of deliverance had appeared, and then gone quiet again. If you have ever had a moment that felt like the beginning of something, a conversation, an opportunity, a door that seemed to crack open, and then watched it close again or go silent, you know something of those 2 years. the waiting after the almost, the patience required when the thread goes quiet. Joseph waited, and God was still there, still working in the invisible places, in the forgotten cupbearer's memory, in ways Joseph couldn't see. Rest in that tonight. The thread has not been cut. Even when it goes quiet, even in the 2 more years, the work continues. 2 years later, Pharaoh dreamed. He stood by the Nile and saw 7 fat, healthy cows come up out of the river, and then 7 thin, gaunt cows came up after them, and the thin cows ate the fat cows. He woke, slept again, dreamed again. 7 full, good ears of grain on one stalk, and 7 thin, blighted ears swallowed the 7 full ears. He woke in the morning, troubled. He called for all the magicians and wise men of Egypt, and none could interpret the dreams. And then, only then, the cupbearer remembered. I remember my offenses today. There was a young Hebrew with us in the prison. He interpreted our dreams, and it came to pass exactly as he interpreted. 2 years of silence, and then remembered, not because the cupbearer suddenly became more reliable or more grateful, because Pharaoh needed an interpreter and no one else could help, and the cupbearer's memory was finally useful to the situation. The timing was God's, not the cupbearer's virtue. If Joseph had been released 2 years earlier, when the cupbearer was first restored, he would have come out of the prison as a footnote, an interpreter of dreams, grateful, perhaps, but returned to an ordinary life. But 2 years later, he came out to interpret Pharaoh's dreams, to stand before the most powerful man in the ancient world, to speak wisdom into a crisis that would determine the fate of nations. The 2 years of silence were not abandonment. They were positioning. God was not slow. He was precise. The timing was not cruel. It was calibrated to something. Joseph couldn't see from inside the prison the exact moment when his presence would be not just useful, but necessary, not just noticed, but essential. The 2 years were part of the plan, not the delay of the plan. Part of it. Tonight, if you have been waiting longer than you expected, if the thread went quiet, when you thought the door was opening, if 2 more years have passed, and the release you were hoping for hasn't come, Hear this. The timing is precise, not slow. Precise. The cupbearer will remember at the exact right moment, not a moment before, not a moment after, the exact right moment. And when Pharaoh dreams, you will be ready. The precision is real. The timing is God's, and it is good. Joseph stood before Pharaoh. Think about what that moment required. He had been in prison for years. The details of ordinary life outside had become abstract. The feel of open air, the sound of a city going about its business, the particular quality of light that is different when you're not looking at it through a prison window. And now, Pharaoh's court, the most powerful man in the world, surrounded by his officials and advisors, and the full weight of Egyptian authority. And Joseph, who had been in a pit, who had been sold for 20 pieces of silver, who had been wrongly accused and forgotten, who had spent years in a place where people disappeared. That Joseph, standing before Pharaoh, Pharaoh said, "I have heard that you can interpret dreams." And Joseph said, "It is not in me." God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer. Not in me. This is the first thing Joseph said in Pharaoh's presence. Yes, I have this gift. I have been waiting for an opportunity like this. Even, I will try my best. It is not in me. God will give the answer. 13 years after the first dreams, the ones his brothers hated him for, the ones his father rebuked him for, the ones that cost him everything, Joseph stood before Pharaoh and said, "It is not in me." The gifts were real. The interpretation was real. The years of faithful waiting had not been wasted. But Joseph knew, with the particular clarity that comes from having been stripped of everything, that what he carried was not his own. It came from somewhere else, through him, not from him. It is not in me. This kind of humility, the kind that comes not from self-deprecation, but from a genuine understanding of where the gift originates, is one of the things the prison years produced in Joseph. He couldn't have said that at 17. At 17, he was sharing his dreams with his brothers. At 17, he was wearing the coat that set him apart. At 17, the gifts were real, but so was the lack of wisdom about how to carry them. The prison taught him what the palace hadn't. Not bitterness, humility, the understanding that what flows through you is not yours to claim, that the interpretation belongs to God, that your job is to be present, to be faithful, to be available, and to step back and let what comes through you do what it was given to do. It is not in me. God will answer. Tonight, whatever gifts you carry, whatever you have been given, that feels more than ordinary, let it be held lightly, not diminished. Held lightly, not claimed too tightly. Let it flow through rather than from. This is what the prison years can produce, if you let them. Not bitterness. This. Joseph interpreted Pharaoh's dreams. 7 years of abundance. 7 years of famine. Coming in sequence. The famine would be severe, would consume the abundance if no provision were made. A wise man should be set over Egypt to prepare. And Pharaoh looked at his officials and said, "Can we find a man like this? In whom is the Spirit of God?" The Spirit of God. Pharaoh was not a Hebrew. He did not worship Joseph's God. He had his own gods, his own priests, his own understanding of the divine. And yet, looking at Joseph, hearing the interpretation, witnessing the clarity and the wisdom, and something more than the ordinary quality of what Joseph carried. He recognized it, the Spirit of God, in this man who had been in a pit, who had been sold, who had been in prison. Pharaoh said, "Since God has shown you all this, there is none so discerning and wise as you. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall order themselves as you command. Only as regards the throne will I be greater than you." From prison to second in command of Egypt, in a single conversation, not gradually, not after a probationary period, not after proving himself in a series of smaller roles that eventually led to this one conversation, the timing of God. This is the moment the whole story has been building toward. Not just Joseph's story, the story of a family, of a famine, of a people who would need Egypt's abundance to survive. All of it, all the years, all the pit, all the slavery, all the false accusations, all the prison, all the 2 years of silence, after the cupbearer forgot. All of it was moving toward this moment. Joseph couldn't see that from the pit. He couldn't see it from Potiphar's house. He couldn't see it from the prison. He could only see the day he was in and be faithful in it. And the story was being written around his faithfulness in ways he couldn't see, in places he had no access to, in the invisible working of a God who was never absent from a single chapter, not one. From the coast to the pit to Egypt to Potiphar's house to the prison to Pharaoh's court. Not one chapter was outside his hand. Your story is the same. Not one chapter outside his hand. Even the pit chapters. Even the prison chapters. Even the 2 years of silence chapters. All of them being written by the one who sees the whole arc. The moment Joseph saw his brothers again, years later, after the famine had come, after the abundance had been stored, after Egypt had become a place, the surrounding nations came to buy grain. His brothers came, not knowing it was him. They bowed, and Joseph saw them bow, exactly as he had dreamed all those years ago, in the coat of many colors, when he was 17 and had no idea what the dream would cost him. The sheaves bowing, the dream completed. He recognized them. He did not reveal himself immediately. He tested them, not from cruelty, from the need to know, from the need to understand whether what had been broken was capable of healing, whether the brothers, those who had sold him, had become different men. They had, through their own suffering, through years of watching their father grieve, through the guilt that had lived in them since the pit, the guilt that even in a different conversation, years later, they said to each other, "In truth, we are guilty concerning our brother." They had been carrying it, and Joseph had been carrying the years. And when he finally revealed himself, when he could no longer hold back, he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard it. He wept, not with anger, with release. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" That was the first thing he said. "You sold me. You left me in a pit. Do you know what those years cost? Is my father still alive?" The love for his father, the one relationship that had never been poisoned. What happened was the first thing out of his mouth. And then, do not be distressed or angry with yourselves, but God redeemed it. For God sent me before you to preserve life. God sent me. God sent me. Joseph had arrived. Through all the years of processing and faithfulness and waiting, at a place where he could see the whole arc, where the pit and the slavery and the prison and the forgotten years were not contradictions of God's presence. They were the path. God sent me before you to preserve life. You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. This is not a small thing to arrive at. This is the work of decades of faithfulness in the dark. The capacity to look back at what was done against you and say, God was in this, not just working despite it, in it, through it, for something larger than what any of you could see. You may not be able to say this yet about whatever pit you are in or have been in. That's okay. Joseph couldn't have said it from inside the prison either. The seeing, the whole arc comes later, after the release, after the reunion, after the years have given you the vantage point to look back and recognize what was being worked. You don't have to see the whole arc tonight. You only have to trust the one who does. Sleep. The arc is real, even from inside the pit, even in the dark. The arc is real, and it is good. A prayer for tonight. Lord, you are the God who was with Joseph in the prison, not around the prison, not waiting outside the prison, in it, with him, every day, every faithful day that no one witnessed, every night that was darker than the one before. You were there. Tonight, Be here with every person lying in the dark who is in their own version of prison, their own unjust situation. Be with them the way you were with Joseph, not fixing it immediately, not explaining it, simply present with them in it. Let the presence be real tonight for the person who has done the right thing and paid a cost for it, who chose integrity and lost something because of that choice. Lord, let them know that what they did was seen, that the faithful choice in the dark was witnessed, that the cost was not wasted. For the person who has been forgotten by someone who promised to remember, by circumstances that moved on without them, by a season that seems to have passed them by. Lord, let them know that you are keeping track, that not one faithful day has gone unnoticed, that the remembering is real, even when the human witnesses are absent. For the person in the 2 more years, the one who had a glimpse of the door opening and then watched it close again, who is trying to trust the timing when the timing feels cruel. Lord, let them know that the timing is precise, that you are not slow. And for the person who cannot yet say, God meant it for good, who is still inside the pit, who is still inside the prison, who cannot yet see the ark. Lord, be patient with them, be present with them. Don't require the theological resolution before you show up. Show up first. The resolution can come later, as it came for Joseph. Later, when the vantage point allowed it. Be with all of them tonight, as you were with Joseph. The Lord was with Joseph. Let that be the last thing every person listening carries into sleep. The Lord was with Joseph, and the Lord is with me in this room, in this dark, on this night, in this breath. Amen. Sleep now. The prayer is heard. The presence is real. And morning is coming. The body is settling now. Let it. From the top of the head, the tension of thought, of processing, of carrying the day's weight in the mind. Let it go. Let the forehead smooth. Let the eyes rest. Let the jaw release. The shoulders, drop them further, all the way. The arms, heavy. The hands, open, not holding anything, not managing anything, simply resting. The chest, rising with each breath, falling, the body's faithful rhythm, unchanged through everything Joseph went through, unchanged through everything you have been through. The belly, soft, moving freely. The back, released into what is beneath it. The legs, heavy, warm. The feet, done carrying for today. Your whole body, from the crown of your head to the soles of your feet, at rest. Joseph, on the night after he was elevated from prison to Pharaoh's second in command, what did that sleep feel like? The first night in a real bed, after the years, the first sleep without the weight of the prison around him, the first night of being on the other side of the waiting. That sleep, we can only imagine it. But tonight, in some way, in whatever way this story has reached you, you are invited into something of that rest. The rest of someone who has been seen, who has been remembered, who has been told, the Lord was with you every day, every faithful day, in the pit, in the slavery, in the false accusation, in the prison, in the forgotten years. Every day, the Lord was with you. Let that settle into the body. Let it be what the body rests on tonight. Not the problem, not the waiting, not the unanswered questions. The Lord was with Joseph, and the Lord is with you. Sleep deeply, peacefully, into the genuine, restoring, rebuilding rest of someone who is seen, who is not forgotten, who is held one last time through the story, the slowest one, a boy, 17 years old, a coat, brothers who hated him, a pit, 20 pieces of silver, Egypt, Potiphar's house. The Lord was with Joseph, Potiphar's wife, the false accusation, the prison. The Lord was with Joseph, the cupbearer, the baker, the dreams interpreted. Remember me. 2 more years. Pharaoh's dreams. The cupbearer remembered. Joseph was standing before Pharaoh. It is not in me. God will answer. The Spirit of God. Second in command. The famine. The brothers bowing. I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? God sent me before you. You meant evil. God meant it for good. The whole ark, visible at last, from the pit to the palace, from the coat to the crown, from the forgotten prisoner to the one who saved nations. All of it held by the one who was with Joseph. In every chapter, not one missed, not one outside his hand. The Lord was with Joseph, and the Lord is with you. In this room, in this dark, in this breath, right now, not when the prison ends. Now, in it, with you. Sleep now. The story is in you. The presence is real. The arc is being written, and it is good. Good night, dear friend. Good night. The Lord was with Joseph, and the Lord is with you. Sleep. Good night. Let me stay with the pit for a moment, because the pit is where everything changed, and it deserves more than a brief mention. The pit was empty, no water in it, just a hole in the ground, dry, dark. The brothers threw him in and sat down to eat their bread. They sat down to eat while Joseph was in the pit. This detail is almost unbearable in its ordinariness. They went about the business of eating while their brother was in a hole in the ground. Life continued for them. The meal, the conversation, the caravan appearing on the horizon, while Joseph sat in the dark. Have you ever been in the pit while life continued normally around you? While the people who put you there went about their ordinary business? While the world carried on without any particular awareness of what you were in? The pit is one of the loneliest places there is. Not because it is painful, though it is, but because it is invisible. Because from inside the pit you can hear the world going on above you, but the world cannot quite hear you. And God was in the pit with Joseph, not visible, not announced, not making the pit comfortable, or explaining why it was necessary. Simply there. The same presence that would later be described as being with Joseph in Potiphar's house and in the prison was present in the pit. It didn't feel different from the pit's perspective, but it was real. Your pit, whatever it has been or is, was not empty of presence. It felt empty, but presence is not dependent on feeling. The Lord was in the pit with Joseph before he even had language for it, before he could articulate what was happening or why. Simply there, as he is here tonight, in this room, in this breath, in whatever pit is still part of your experience or memory. Simply there. Rest in that. The pit was not empty, and neither is tonight. Something about the dreams, Joseph's first dreams, the ones at 17 that cost him everything, were real. He didn't manufacture them. He didn't exaggerate them. He shared them with the unguarded honesty of someone who hasn't yet learned how dangerous honesty can be. And the dreams were true. His brothers did bow. His father did. In the person of his descendants, acknowledge him. Everything the dreams showed came to pass, not in the way anyone expected, not on any timeline anyone would have chosen, not without enormous cost. But the dreams were true. This is worth sitting with. The things God places in you, the sense of calling, the awareness of gifts, the dreams in whatever form they come, are real. They may cost you. They may attract resistance from the people around you who are threatened by them or simply don't understand them. They may take years or decades, longer than you expected to find their expression, but they are real. The dream was real. Even when Joseph was in the pit, even when he was in Potiphar's house, even when he was in the prison, the dream was still real. It had not expired. It had not been canceled by the brothers' hatred, or the false accusation, or the forgotten years. It was still real. And when Pharaoh dreamed, when the exact moment came that required what Joseph carried, the dream found its fulfillment. In the precise moment it was needed, whatever God has placed in you, the dream in whatever form it takes, it has not expired. The pit didn't cancel it. The prison didn't cancel it. The years of waiting didn't cancel it. It is still real. And there is a moment already set, already coming, when it will find its expression. In the precise moment it is needed. Rest in that tonight. The dream is real. Sleep. the faithfulness in small things. One of the most consistent threads through Joseph's whole story is this: wherever he was faithful in the small things of that place. In Potiphar's house, he worked well. He managed with integrity. He did what was in front of him with all he had. In the prison, he did the same. The keeper of the prison trusted him. The other prisoners came to him. When the cupbearer and baker were troubled, he noticed, he asked, he cared. Small things, not the grand gesture of someone who is conscious of being observed by history. The ordinary faithfulness of someone who simply showed up day after day in whatever place they were in. And this faithfulness, the small, daily, unremarkable kind, is what God used. Not Joseph's eloquence, exactly, not his dramatic gifts, the faithfulness, the showing up, the doing of small things well, which created trust, which positioned him, which meant that when Pharaoh needed someone, when the exact moment came, Joseph was ready, not just with the gift of interpretation, with the track record of faithfulness. That made him trustworthy for the role. The small things were the preparation. Your small things are preparation too. The daily faithfulness that no one applauds. The integrity in the ordinary moments. The showing up when showing up is costly. The noticing of the downcast faces around you, even in the middle of your own difficulty. Small things. Being prepared for the moment they are needed. You don't know when that moment is. Joseph didn't know. He only knew the day he was in, and the small thing the day was asking of him. Tonight, the small thing the day is asking of you is this: rest. Sleep is the small faithful thing of tonight, and it is preparation for tomorrow, for whatever small faithful thing tomorrow requires. Sleep. The preparation is real, and it matters. Good night. There is a word that appears in the Joseph story that deserves a moment. The Hebrew word tzalak. It means to succeed, to prosper, to advance, to push through. The Lord made everything he did to tzalak. Whatever Joseph did, whatever the situation, whatever the darkness of the context, whatever the injustice of the place, the Lord made it push through. Not perfectly, not without difficulty, not bypassing the hard years, but through. The faithfulness pushed through, the gifts pushed through, the small things pushed through, and eventually, when the moment came, when Pharaoh dreamed, and the cupbearer remembered, and the door of the prison opened, all of it came through together. Tzalak. Success that is not about comfort or ease or the absence of difficulty. Success that is about pushing through. Whatever Joseph did, whatever the context, the Lord made it push through. Tonight, in whatever you are doing, in whatever context you find yourself, in whatever situation feels like it should not be succeeding but somehow, quietly, stubbornly is, that is tzalak, the Lord making things push through, even in the pit, even in the prison. Especially there, the pushing through is real, and it is the Lord's doing, not yours alone, not despite where you are. Through it, rest in that tzalak is real, and it is still happening. In the invisible places, right now, while you sleep, sleep, and let it continue. before the silence. The coat of many colors, or long sleeves, or whatever it was exactly. It appears twice in Joseph's story. Once at the beginning, his father gave it to him as a sign of favor. Once in the middle, his brothers used it as evidence, dipped in blood, to deceive his father. The coat that was a sign of love became the instrument of a lie. The very thing that marked him as beloved became the thing used to make his father believe he was dead. This is the particular cruelty of what the brothers did. They didn't just hurt Joseph. They used the symbol of his father's love against him. And yet, the love was real. The coat could be taken. The love could not. Jacob mourned for years. He believed his son was dead. He grieved with a depth that the text captures in few words. He refused to be comforted. He loved Joseph. Even when he thought Joseph was gone, the love did not stop because the coat was gone. And Joseph, in Egypt, in Potiphar's house, in the prison, was still loved, even when he couldn't feel it, even when he had no evidence of it, even when every outward sign of the love had been stripped away. The love was real. Whatever has been taken from you, whatever the symbol of love, or favor, or belonging that was stripped away, whatever the coat in your own story, the love it pointed to is not gone. The coat can be taken. Love cannot. Tonight, whatever has been stripped, whatever has been used against you, whatever sign of belonging has been removed, the love behind it is real, still present, like Jacob's love for Joseph, undiminished by the coat being gone, undimmed by the years of absence, still there, still real. You are still loved. Sleep in that. The coat can be taken. Love cannot. Good night. And now the silence. Let the story settle. Let the present settle. The Lord was with Joseph in the pit, in the house, in the prison, in the palace, in every chapter, not one missed. The Lord is with you in this room, in this dark, in this breath, in this night, and in the morning that is coming, already prepared, already good. Sleep. Good night, dear friend. Good night. The Lord was with Joseph, and the Lord is with you. Good night. The waiting. This is the part of Joseph's story that the dramatic retellings tend to compress. The pit to Egypt. A journey. Egypt to Potiphar's house. Transition. The false accusation. A crisis. The prison. Years. The cupbearer forgetting. 2 more years. In total. From the pit to the palace. 13 years. 13. Not 13 months. Not 13 weeks. 13 years of Joseph's life were spent in circumstances he did not choose, in positions he did not deserve, waiting for something he could not arrange. 13 years. We read it in a few pages. We absorb it in a few minutes. But the living of it, the actual, embodied, 1 day, at a time living of 13 years of waiting was the real cost. 13 years of waking up in a place you didn't belong. 13 years of doing the faithful thing in the unjust situation. 13 years of holding on to something. The dream. The sense that this was not the end. The quiet knowledge that God was present, even when nothing confirmed it. Without the external evidence to justify holding on. 13 years. And on the other side of them, Pharaoh's court, second in command, the saving of nations. The 13 years were not a detour from the story. They were the story. Joseph couldn't have stood before Pharaoh as the man he became without the 13 years that made him that man. The pit taught him what the palace couldn't. Slavery taught him what freedom couldn't. The prison taught him what the open road couldn't. Not lessons that could be learned in a classroom, or from a book, or from watching someone else go through it. Lessons that required living them in the body, in the waiting, in the faithfulness that had no guarantee of reward, in the trusting when trust was all there was. Your waiting is making you someone, not ruining you, making you. The person you are becoming through the waiting is different from the person you were before it began. Not worse, different, deeper, more capable of the thing that is coming, more ready for the Pharaoh's court in whatever form it takes in your story. The 13 years are not the enemy of destiny. They are the preparation for it. Rest in that tonight. The waiting is not wasted. It never is. Sleep.